The transportation and logistics industry has its own set of challenges. In the hot seat, industry thought leaders take on M&A and what's driving the future of transportation and logistics. Are you ready for the hot seat?
Welcome to In the Hot Seat with the Tenney Group. I'm Spencer Tenney. It's good to be with you. My next guest 4 years ago was in a garage stuffed with coffee, whiteboards, and asking themselves, there must be a better way for auto repair. Now he has just hit the 77th fastest growing company according to Inc.com. With me, please welcome Brett Carlson, founder and CEO of ServiceUp. Brett, welcome to the hot seat.
Thank you, Spencer. Thanks for having me.
Well, excellent. Well, I can't wait to unpack this. This is really fascinating. But before we do, why don't you just take about 30 seconds and tell us a little bit about the work that you're doing there at ServiceUp.
So we're automating car repair. It's pretty simple. When we started, everybody wanted to be able to do everything on their phone. So now we allow people to repair vehicles on their phone, whether you have a small fleet of 5, or if you're like largely insurance brokers where you have millions of fleets or vehicles you have to manage. It doesn't matter.
Oh, I love that. Well, let's heat things up here a little bit. Tell me about the genesis of identifying that this was a problem and then realizing that you could actually do something to affect it.
So I'll rewind and really go deep into my career, and I can do it really quickly. Most of my career, when I explained to people what I did, they had no clue what I was talking about because there's always deep tech, hardcore technology, hardcore software. And I would try to explain what I did when people like their eyes would glaze over. When we started ServiceUp, I started to explain the basic issue. The car repair is archaic. It operates like it's 1985. It was really mind-boggling to me to see how old the technology was and then how large the space was. Depends on how you look at it, but let's say 200 billion annually just in the US. Extremely fragmented, extremely old technology. And we got into it via the consumer. So the whole gist was repair your vehicle on your phone. Everybody's obsessed with their phone. Everybody wants to do everything on their phone. So we gave them the ability to repair their vehicle on their phone. And then we started looking at the larger ecosystem and said, these large fleets, these large insurance providers have the same issue.
I love that. So walk us through a scenario. Someone has a problem. They're using ServiceUp. Like, what does it look like from start to finish to realizing that they have a problem and then solving the issue from their phone?
So generally speaking, most of these large fleet managers that are now engaged on our platform are using it on a PC or a Mac. So not everybody's generally engaged on the phone these days. When you look at the experience at a high level, I would go out and I'd talk to the large car fleets, the large last mile delivery fleets, the large insurance providers, and either people are using email, text message, phone call, Excel spreadsheet, Google Docs, or they've even got really complex and duct tape the whole thing together. What we do is we have a simple platform. We manage all your vehicles in one single user interface. The whole thing gets updated real time. You can see everything. You can see every single individual repair. Every single repair acts like an own data capsule, so you understand where it is in the process. Everything's time stamped. All the communication is there.
I love that. So what all does this mean for the industry? I mean, this is really interesting stuff. What does it mean in terms of the problem that you're solving? How is this going to make people's lives better?
So when I look at the insurance industry, I sometimes chuckle. I use an insurance application for my business. We partner with one of the larger applications on the insurance side. They're a multi-billion-dollar company. They're very well respected. And for me to use their technology, I have to have a PC running inside of my closet turned on 24/7, which is just hysterical to me. Coming from Silicon Valley, being a tech guy, that for me to use their application and I partner with them, when I pay them money, I have to have a PC running inside of my closet. We take out all of the old technology. We allow people to run on a modern technology platform. We're very, very forward-leaning into automation and AI. A lot of the interactions we have, there's no human being involved. One of the things that I'd like to say, everybody starts to get nervous, whether you're a large fleet or a large insurance provider, around AI and artificial intelligence, all we're going to do is make people more efficient and make their jobs easier.
I love it. So you recently had a Series B capital raise, a successful raise, which I want to unpack that a little bit. But I think that part of the journey here that I think our audience is really going to appreciate is just kind of, from where you started and then kind of getting to where you are right now, which is super exciting. So one of the comments that I saw on your LinkedIn profile, someone was describing you as Brett is all in. Everything he does, he is all in. Obviously to get where you're at right now, it takes commitment, but where does that all in attitude, where did that come from you?
Unfortunately, I think it's how I was born. Hopefully have an off switch. I'm generally, go 24/7. I only require about 4 hours of sleep. So I generally tire people out that are well good with me. I was told 15 years ago, the first time I got promoted to manage a team by my manager, that if I expected my team to work like I did, I would kill them within 90 days. And so when I was at a big company, I could not expect my team to work at my pace and cadence. The beautiful thing about being a garage startup, you hire people who also can work at your pace and cadence.
That's a good point right there. I may have heard that once or twice along my journey as well, Brett. As far as don't expect people to run at the same speed, or at least get people that will do it if you're going to expect it.
My very first job, nobody thought I was going to last because I came from being a mountain guy. I was a mountain guide in a lot of debt. I came back to Silicon Valley in the late 90s. I was like, how do I make a lot of money to get out of debt as fast as possible and then go back in the mountains? So I got a job as a software sales guy over the phone. And I quickly realized that everybody's name was on a whiteboard. And so you could see who was selling what. And so I quickly figured out it was a competition. So what I did is I went home and I got my sleeping bag and I didn't leave the office for about 2.5 years because they fed me, they had a shower, and I just slept there and I worked. And now I look back. This is a real story. And I look back and my manager must have thought I was insane. And I just wanted to win and be number one on the board. So every time I wasn't number one on the board, I just wouldn't leave the office.
Well, I hope you told that story when you were raising capital, because that would have got my money on that one, Brett. If I'm going to bet on a founder, that's pretty fascinating. So tell me about, I mean, you look at your resume, you had some really interesting stops along the way. How have some of these stops influenced the way that you think about entrepreneurship?
So my first few companies were larger companies. So the small parts, like a very small part, cog in the wheel. I quickly learned that I really liked actually building companies, building teams, building technology, building process. And doing that's a lot easier when you're a smaller team. One of the I've learned a lot of lessons. Some of them filled with blood, sweat, and tears. Actually, probably most of my best lessons have come from failure. One of the big ones I learned early on is we were doing a social betting startup called Betcha. And we went out to raise money, and we raised some money, and then we were giving updates to all the smartest venture capitalists on planet Earth. And we went in and we presented what we had, and I had this extremely elaborate deck around how we were going to make money. Like, I spent months on figuring out how we were going to make money in the betting world. And all these people looked at me and they said, we don't care how you're going to make money. We want you just to go collect eyeballs and users. So I went back to my office and I worked with my team, and we decided, okay, we will figure out how we're going to get as many users as possible in a short amount of time. So we changed the entire process. We went out, we got about 50,000 users over the next 90 days. And then we went back to these venture capitalists and we gave them an update. And it was 9 months later, and Facebook had just gone public and everybody hated social media. For a little while, there's about 6 months there where everybody thought social media was going to be the worst thing ever. And so the smartest venture capitalists on planet Earth, they looked at me and they said, well, how are you going to make money? And the first time I heard it, I wasn't mature enough to be like, oh, hold on, time out. A little while ago, you just told me to go get eyeballs, and now you're telling me to figure out how I'm going to make money. So the next day, I went into another venture capitalist firm. And like I said, if I were to create a list of the best venture capitalists on Earth, these guys would be on that list. So these guys are not dumb human beings. The next guy said it to me, well, how are you going to make money? And I said, wait, 9 months ago, you told me just to go collect eyeballs. And he looked at me dead in the face and he said, market's changed. And he was right. The market had changed. But one of my biggest lessons in that is just if somebody's absurdly smart and they're, have the ability to give you hundreds of millions of dollars, doesn't necessarily make sure they're right. So you really have to have conviction of what you're feeling. You can't just always listen to how the wind blows.
No, I think that's a great tip. So let's kind of expand on that. I mean, there's so many folks right now. I mean, the possibilities around emerging technology are literally limitless in what's going on. But just because there's an idea, just because there's an opportunity doesn't mean that it can be a business necessarily, or one that's going to secure capital anyways to help it, have a chance to be a business. So what are some of the lessons that you've learned? Because you've done this multiple times. What are some of the best practices that you have taken away from your efforts in the efforts to raise capital? What are some things that you would want to make sure other folks that are on the cusp of an emerging business, what are some things that you think could be helpful to them?
If you're trying to raise money, number one, make sure you're talking to the people who are actually going to write the check. I hate to say this out loud, but I will. Don't talk to the junior people because there's a lot of junior people out there. The venture ecosystem is filled with thousands and thousands of companies at this point. So there's this filter system at the bottom where people are just reaching out and trying to get engaged. So number one, make sure you're talking to the right person. Number two, making sure you're talking to the right firm. Most firms are very, very specialized in kind of their ideal investment profile. Mm-hmm. And then three, when you're actually engaged and you are talking to them, it is a longer process. Like the firm that just Peakspan, who just led our Series B, we've been talking to them for 1.5 years. So when you start the process, make sure you know what is important to them. It's going to be a lot of data. Make sure you understand that you show progression in your data. And, never over sell what you can't perform to 3 months from now.
No, I think that's a great point. I think so many people, they wait too long to develop those relationships. And so when they actually need and are desperate for that capital, that, they're too late. And so it's encouraging to hear you say that you've had these things in motion for a long time before you actually activate.
We literally, this is no exaggeration, probably have talked to 175 different venture capital firms. I mean, to say it's a full-time job is a massive understatement.
Mm. Has that become your primary responsibility as founder? I mean, is that where you find yourself spending the majority of your time over the last 1 to 2 years?
Yeah. Hiring, taking care of our largest customers, clients, and raising money.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's, we talk about this all the time in terms of just making sure, even if you're the founder, sometimes you're the founder, but you're not the person that should be raising money. Whoever that is, you need to make sure that you get the right person, the right seat, especially when it comes to raising capital. A lot of times it is the founder because nobody can tell the story and sell it like the founder. But in this case, it certainly sounds like you were the one selling it and selling it well.
Yeah. And I'll be honest, after our Series A, I actually didn't want to remain as the CEO. I was going to give up the job and take kind of a different role from the company. And Tech Global, led our Series A, said, no, you raise the money. We're investing in you. You're leaving the company.
Yeah. I think that's part of the deal is if you're going to be raising capital, that you're bringing on partners. And I mean, you don't have total autonomy anymore. And so that's the exchange. And I think for some folks it's uncomfortable, but to see a company realize its full potential, those are some of the exchanges that kind of come along the way for sure.
I'll even double down on that. I obviously take raising money very seriously. When somebody hands me a big check, like a $55 million check, I even take it more seriously when my friends and family give me $100,000 check on the seed round. I mean, that gets even really stressful when, imagine taking your father-in-law's money, which I did. I mean, there's pressure for you.
No, and for somebody who's supported and invested on a venture level, it's all about people. It's all about the trust and the person. And I'm curious. You have a great product that solves a serious problem. What is it about the relationship side of raising capital that you have found to be critical to have success multiple times?
I believe most large venture capital firms are looking at the team specifically, as well as obviously the idea and the market. And, I have utter respect for people who come out of Stanford and Harvard and all the business schools out there. I do believe that for a whole nother subcategory of human beings just have a chip on their shoulder and are willing to eat off their own fingers to succeed and not fail. Those are people that I like to hire. I like to hire the people who have a chip on their shoulder and want to prove something.
I love hearing that, and I've actually echoed many of those same words. It's amazing what can happen when you give someone who is shot, who on paper maybe doesn't have the same sizzle as another person that had, or the pedigree, but it's pretty amazing when they get a shot what they can actually accomplish, and they've got that hunger, and they have that just refusal to fail. Some pretty wonderful things can happen. So let me fast forward a little bit. What were some of the, getting the business to where it is now at ServiceUp? What were some of the obstacles that you've had to overcome to get to, obviously you just got a $55 million raise. What were some of the obstacles along the way to kind of get ServiceUp where you are today?
Probably one of the big ones is when we pivoted away from consumer and went full B2B and then B2B to C through insurance. So we still do repair consumers' vehicles, but that is for insurance providers. That was a 6-month process because the initial vision was to be able to repair consumer cars. And that is where we started. We came out of a traditional repair shop during COVID. And so the big first pivot was going just B2B. And then really doubling down on automation and AI has been another big pivot. Like looking at what could be automated at the most rapid pace and like how that process lays out for your traditional fleet manager who may not understand automation.
Yeah. No, that's fascinating. So as we look ahead, you've just secured this raise. What are the next 1, 2, 3 years going to look like for ServiceUp?
Most of the $55 million we're spending on more developers, so more engineers build more automation, more product life cycles. So about 2/3 of the $55 million will be spent on development and product. The other third will be going into new markets. Let's say 2 to 3 years out would probably be about 80% automated in the entire vehicle repair life cycle. When you ask, what that is, like what kind of automation are we layering in? My favorite example, it's also the scariest example, is we have an agent that calls into shops. A year ago, we used offshore resources out of the Philippines to physically call the shops because we had an ideal shop profile to put into our network. So now we have a fake human being that calls into shops. Because when we go into the new market, we need as many shops as possible for our platform to operate. 6 months ago, when I would get on the phone with the fake human being, his name is Alex Irving, I could figure out in a little while that it was a fake human being. Either a cough, and have an understand. When you're talking to like an airline company or a banking station, you're talking to a fake human being, and it's always saying, "Excuse me, can you repeat that?" Blah 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 blah. So at first, our fake human being, after about 30 seconds, you can figure out is a fake human being. And you fast forward 90 days, you have no idea that you're talking to a robot. It's extremely eerie. No matter what you throw at it, answers instantly. It knows the right response. If you cough, if I just get on a side from the calls, it knows what you're doing. It is a beautiful thing for our platform. It does sometimes make me a little weirded out that over a 3-month period, it evolves so quickly.
That is wild. How much volume? And what does the output look like? Because I think there's a tremendous amount of tension, how fast things are moving. I mean, you talk about, outsourcing to Philippines and probably felt really good about that decision. And then you realize there's this other capability. Like what is the difference between the volume of output calls that actually have engagement? What's the difference between what you were experiencing in the Philippines and what you're now experiencing through this technology?
Well, here's the area part. We would have 5 people in the Philippines calling into a geographic region, whether it was St. Louis, Missouri, or Denver, Colorado, and however many shops there were, we'd call probably 50% of them, because prior to that, we'd scrape the internet, we'd pull off various data points on the internet, whether it's Yelp reviews, Google reviews. We'd go to like quasi competitor sites, kind of like scrape the information from them. So we have an ideal shop profile. So then we'd call into that ideal shop profile, and our ideal shop profile is probably only 50% of the market. So however many shops are in the market, let's call it there's 2,000 in a certain geographic region. So we're calling into 1,000. So however long that takes, we can call those 1,000 shops instantaneously at the same exact time and pull all that data into our data system over a 5-minute period. So in 5 minutes, we can be operationally efficient in a market where previously it take us, 5 human beings a solid 2 weeks calling into that market.
That is pretty crazy.
It's definitely wild. But here's the good thing. My outsourced team in the Philippines, we still have them, same people. We love them. They're excellent at what they do. And now they're just doing something else.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting. Like, we've had similar like projects like what you're doing right now, and it's interesting how we're seeing the profile for these workforces kind of augment based on being complementary to the emerging technology on the AI side. Like, I just can't believe, like, what you just said kind of blew my mind, that you could do 5,000 in 5 minutes and have all the data mined in real time. That's pretty remarkable. So what's ahead? I mean, you're doing these new markets. What are you excited about in terms of things that are emerging? You've got some new engineers, and you're developing some new products. What are some things that are on the cusp of emerging from ServiceUp that you're excited about?
Probably the thing that I believe is the biggest game changer, and we will release it before the year is out, hopefully sometime before Thanksgiving, is we'll do shop optimization. So if you think about in a geographic region, there's a certain amount of shops. Let's take LAX, for example. With all the rental car companies around LAX, let's say there's 60 different shops around LAX. On any given day, maybe they're at 75% capacity, so they can take extra shops. Maybe they're at 100% capacity, so they cannot take extra vehicles. We are figuring out shop capacity without being tapped into their system. So we don't have access to their calendars. We don't have access to their current ShopSat applications, but we know their capacity. So then we know that on any given day, say we have to pay a certain hourly rate to get the vehicle out over a 2-day period, or maybe we have to increase that by 10% to get the vehicle out. So it's like Uber surge pricing with shop capacity in a geographic region. Every single insurance provider I've talked to, every single large fleet I've talked to wants this capability.
And I can see why. My goodness. Well, I have to say, it's a remarkable story, and it sounds like you're just getting warmed up, sir. So a couple final questions here. I'm always curious about, like, just founders. You mentioned some of the companies that may have influence. When you think about leaders that are doing interesting things, who are some of the folks, either or think people that you've looked up that have kind of provided you some inspiration or a model that have affected the way that you pursue business?
Okay, I'll throw a controversial one out. And I don't know him personally, so we'll go with Elon Musk. And the thing that fascinates me about Elon is, I believe he's the CEO of 4 companies right now.
At least, I mean, who knows?
I mean, just being the CEO of a 100-person startup dealing with vehicle repair, it is a full-time job for myself. So the fact that, he's running 4 companies, he's going into politics, I don't know how he managed with his day. I mean, it's, I would love to follow him around, whether I agree with him politically, whether I agree with his decisions around like how he manages his companies, whether I agree with what comes out of his mouth, how he manages his calendar is world class.
Yeah, you can't argue with the overall production, no matter where you sit or even what you believe. It is unlike anything that we've seen in the history of mankind, for that matter. I never seen anything like that. Who else? You said there was a couple. Who was the other one?
One of my mentors, back in the day, Sun Microsystems, before Oracle bought them. Sun Microsystems, when I was just getting started in technology, was the elite company of all the technology companies. So if you were really smart as a technical human being, you went to work for Sun. Now it's spread out. It's Google, it's Facebook, it's Apple, it's Amazon. But 25 years ago, if you were one of the smartest technologists out there and you wanted to work for a large company, you went to work for Sun. The CTO of Sun Microsystems, his name is Greg Papadopoulos. He's probably one of the more accomplished human beings that I've ever interacted with. And yet he's probably the most humble human being I've ever talked to. So I always try to mimic his kind of leadership style. He's very no ego. He's all about we, never about I. And he's had extreme success in very competitive environments, and it's never gone to his head. So he's always one I kind of look to as my North Star, as being a quality human being in a world filled with extremely aggressive sharks.
Yeah. No, that's a good word. That's a good compliment between him and Elon there. Two different personalities for sure. So,
honestly, they couldn't be different as far as their personalities go.
Yeah. Well, listen, I'll wrap up with a little bit of a wild card question. I'm very curious. You started talking about your early days of wanting to be was it a mountain climbing guide? Is that what you said?
I was a mountain guide, and that doesn't really pay that well. So I had to get myself out of student debt, credit card debt, and that's how I got into the technology world.
Well, let's just say ServiceUp goes public 2026, 2027. You decide to take a year off, go back to your mountain guide days. And you're going to take some of me and my Tenney Group clients with you. What is the number one mountain climbing experience that you would recommend?
Well, if you like being comfortable and not fearing for your life, I would not recommend any mountain climbing experience. Because the big faux pas about mountain climbing is everybody romanticizes it and sees pictures and reads articles. 95% of the time it is miserable. So maybe I would suggest we go to a Four Seasons. But if we were going to go climb a mountain together, what mountain would I suggest? I would probably suggest Denali in Alaska, because it's challenging and beautiful. And at the same time, you can still risk your life unnecessarily and die.
It sounds a lot like the logistics industry myself, but hey, listen, Brett, I mean, what you're doing is so exciting. I really appreciate you spending some time with us here. How can our audience learn a little bit more about what you're doing and follow your journey?
ServiceUp.com or follow me on LinkedIn, Brett Carlson.
All right, sir, that's going to do it for us in the hot seat. We will see you next time.
Thanks, Spencer.